Have you ever tried to describe a scene to someone and after all the effort that you've made to tell them exactly what the moment was like? What the sights were, what the sounds were, what you heard and what you felt, what your emotional presence was. After all of the effort you pulled into this, you realize I spent all this time painting a picture and they don't get it. They don't see it. Maybe it was just a setup for a joke and you hadn't got the punchline yet and you realize you just had to be there. And if you haven't been there, then no amount of describing it will actually put you there. Is it just me? I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I realize that a lot of communicators struggle with that same thing, but many of them try to solve the puzzle with what they call a word picture. The challenge with a word picture is, in my opinion, it's a very risky process, especially if, like a guy that I listened to not too long ago, your intent is to prey on the emotions of the crowd. Using the word picture to draw them into the emotional state that you want them to be in, to prey on their emotions, is a challenge because the way you see that picture, that scene, that event, that moment in time, and the way they see it may be completely different. It's like the old, well, you had to be there kind of mentality. The challenge is we all have different perspectives. Maybe you've heard this statement, if there was a car accident and there were 10 eyewitnesses on the corner, if 3 different people interviewed all 10 of those eyewitnesses, you would have 15 different stories when you're done. Because the same person will hear another inference and change their perspective a little bit. Some people will say exactly the same thing every time, but it doesn't line up with what anybody else saw. We all have that problem when it comes to communication, in that the perspective that we approach life with is often the lens that we see life through. As communicators, we may have a Pollyanna worldview. I have a friend who literally wears rose-colored glasses. Sometimes he wears yellow ones, and sometimes he wears blue ones. But he does sometimes literally wear rose-colored glasses. The world looks differently to him than it does to anybody else. In the text, I use the illustration of Mayberry. Now, if you've ever seen the Andy Griffith Show, which was a 1950s and 60s sitcom, in that show, there's a very quaint little town, and it's a town that's right on the edge of the highway, but it's a small enough town that people leave their car windows down and the doors unlocked and the front door to their home unlocked and their business is unlocked, and everybody knows everybody in town, and it's a nice little town. But it also represents an era in time in the early 60s when the civil rights movement in the United States was just beginning to rise up. When people were just beginning to say, we are humans, we deserve a right to vote. We deserve a right to make a difference in the world. We deserve a right to serve in public office. We deserve a right to share a bathroom and a water fountain and a school. This is ridiculous. And it's sad that it took almost 100 years from the time that slaves were liberated before that took place. But see, there are one group of people, perhaps more than one, who look at Mayberry as a scene, and they can hear the little bells jingling as the bicycles ride down the sidewalk. They can smell Aunt Bee's apple pie cooking in the kitchen and wafting out through the windowsills, and they hear the birds and the porch swings, and everything is wonderful, and it's like utopia. And others think of exactly the same scene, and there's a turn in their stomach. They hurt for their relatives who were unjustly imprisoned and arrested and beaten for no reason, who were sent to the back of the bus, who were told you can't drink from that fountain or use that restroom, because that was a different era in time for certain people. Are we still talking about the same town? Yes. Are we still talking about the same sights and sounds? Yes. Are we talking about an entirely different emotional reaction to the same thing? Yes. And as communicators, especially as leaders who use communication as a primary form of gaining buy-in and getting people to work on your team at a different level, If you're not acutely aware of the diversity of your crowd and the ability to communicate the emotional state that you want to without risking a scene, a picture that approaches different people from a different emotional state, then you're going to find yourself causing pain and separation and dissension within your audience that you're not aware that you're causing. Word pictures have to be used with great care. Word pictures may mean one thing to you and something entirely different to someone else. I personally love Brussels sprouts and broccoli and asparagus. I can't cook them at home while my wife is home because she hates the smell of them cooking. She'll leave the house. She doesn't like to eat them, and she doesn't want to smell them cooking. What is pleasurable to me is offensive to her. The same thing is true when you communicate as a leader. There are some things that your perspective sees as positive and rewarding, and others find offensive and hurtful. Be cautious in the word pictures that you use and the emotional presence they bring for someone else. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.